Hey, what's up guys? How's it going? How's everybody doing today? Welcome back. So for today's unfortunate emotional gut shot, today we're talking about a movie called Brian Banks. And you know, I would say the upside of being stupid, kind of like I am, is that when you go in to see movies that are inspired by true events, it really pays off to not know exactly what happened in real life. Because first of all, if the movie's good, you end up being entertained by it, and then second of all, since it's based on a true story, there's other things that you can look up or think about later on or afterwards. And for me, that applies to this movie because I had no idea what the story was about. I didn't know how it ended. But I can tell you after watching that this whole story is just certifiably fucked up. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean the way that the movie portrayed this particular event, because the movie's not really overly graphic. It really doesn't even have that much language in it, to be honest. But just the fact that this whole thing actually happened and has probably happened tens of thousands of other times is scary as shit. In case you're unfamiliar, this is the true story of Brian Banks, who was accused of sexual assault charges when he was very young. I think he was about 16. And at the time, he was a very up-and-coming, promising football player, but then he went to prison for a few years and is now currently on probation, and that's where the movie starts. And the movie doesn't say specifically, but I'm assuming that Banks is playing for some type of amateur or semi-pro team, so he's still trying to go for a shot at the NFL. But then all of a sudden, the conditions of his parole change, and he has to wear an ankle bracelet, and he can't go to the field that he's practicing on. So the rest of the movie is really just about him trying to clear his name, not even necessarily trying getting into the NFL, because he has to register himself as a sex offender for the rest of his life. And this movie is the prime example of why I have trust issues, and I like to live in a place where there are lots of witnesses. And it's also clear from this movie that it really helps if you have friends that are lawyers, because people get falsely accused all the time, and I would say that this is ultimately a cautionary tale mixed with a tale of perseverance. Because despite all the horrifically bad shit that happened to this guy, he still just kept on fighting, kept trying to get his name cleared, kept trying to like make it so that everybody was comfortable with him as a person. And just in general, I actually really enjoyed this movie. The only real negative that I have about the movie is that some of the dialogue was really trying to beat you over the head in like the last half or like the last third of the movie, because several characters tend to make these kind of proclamations about how Brian Banks is just a good man and he means well and he never did anything wrong. And from my perspective, we had an entire movie that has already told us that, so this all kind of getting tacked on later on in the movie, it was a little bit irrelevant, I thought. But even if it didn't play as well as it could have, the movie's heart was still in the right place. It still had good intentions. And I would comment on the pacing and the structure of the movie, but I don't really think that's fair, because this is based on a true story. And the fact of the matter is that in reality, sometimes life is a little crazy. Even if you have some structure to your life, like you have a 9-to-5 job, you still do different things over the weekends, and you still are in a different mood every day. You eat different foods every day. Like, there's plenty of variables there. So the pace was weird, but I'm not docking the movie any points for that. The acting was pretty good. Not spectacular, but I still thought it was good. And as for Aldous Hodge, who actually plays Brian Banks in the movie, I thought he carried the movie pretty f***ing well. And to my knowledge, he's really not a leading man necessarily. I'm sure he's been in other things, just I don't recognize him like right off the bat. But the fact remains, the dude could carry a movie, and that's saying something. And assuming that everything in this movie, for all intents and purposes, is true, I'm sure they truncated a few things, because that's kind of what you do when you're adapting something into a film. But if anything from the third act actually happened as it was portrayed, that's fucking nuts. Just the fact that like the girl who was the victim and then her mom, like if anything about those two characters is real, I can't even fathom the fact that these people exist and how they can like be who they are. But that's all I'm gonna say about that. Overall, I would say some of the things in this movie were a little bit paint by numbers, but overall I quite enjoyed this movie. And I also learned something new, which is always a bonus. So I think for a score out of 10, I think I'm gonna give it like a 7.8. I don't think I would necessarily go out of my way to watch this movie again, but it is still really an interesting story, and if somebody asked me whether or not they should go see it, I would say yes, definitely check it out. It's worth a watch for sure. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Have you guys seen this movie? Have you heard of it? Did you actually know the true story? Hop in the comments. Let me know what's up. Other than that, if you like this review, give me a like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, do all that other happy horse shit, and I will catch you guys next time.